Welcome everyone to our 5th College Talk Tuesday with the topic of trades, apprenticeships, and career technical education programs. Today we have a couple guests joining us to share about the programs that they are either a part of or that they run. And this is going to be a great opportunity to learn about these trades, apprenticeships, and career technical education programs. And it is a good time to ask questions if you have any about these programs. The way this is going to work is we're going to go through a couple short presentations from our panelists today. Each of them will have about 6 to 7 minutes to speak on their programs. And then we're going to allow for some time for questions. Our first 2 panelists will share about their programs, and then we'll go into a Q&A for them, and then we'll continue with the rest of our panelists.
I decided to go into cosmetology because I always had the full intention of going to a 4-year university, but then I got to senior year and I still had no idea what I wanted to do, but I've always loved beauty. I've always loved doing my nails. I've always loved hair, doing all that.
How did it work to get accepted into your program, or how did you come about choosing where you went and all of that?
I just looked up a bunch of schools. I knew I wanted to go to the Portland area just to get out of Central Oregon. But Bella was by far the easiest to work with, the easiest to get into. I went and toured 5 other schools. I went to Aveda, Paul Mitchell, Northwest, Bella, and Fagans. And Bella was, I could just fit into the vibe there from just walking in there. Yeah, and how did I get accepted? I had an interview with the Dean of Students, Victoria, and she just kind of explained what the program would look like and everything, and she just said, "We'll take you."
Okay, and for the last question for Avery, she's going to give us a brief overview of how her program works, what a day looks like for her, what her classes look like, and then how she moves on.
Okay, so I'm fully enrolled in I'm a full cosmetology student, which means I do hair. I will eventually do hair, skin, and nails. You always start out with hair because it takes the longest. It's about a 7-month period, but my school is private, so that means I don't have to complete state hours. I just have to complete services, and my teachers move me on as they see fit. So you can move a little faster in my school than in a typical state school. But so I start with hair. And you're a freshman and so you're a freshman for 4 weeks and a sophomore for 4 weeks. So you're in the freshman sophomore room for 8 weeks, and then you move out to the floor where you do clients, and you're just not doing theory like you would in this freshman sophomore classroom, and you get to work on real people, which is really cool. I started in October, and I was scheduled to start my next program March 30th before COVID took over, so that will be postponed, but when I get back I'll probably just jump right into it. And I'm about 2 weeks done from being with hair once we get back into school, and then I'll eventually just do full-time aesthetics, and then eventually I'll do part-time aesthetics, part-time nails. I've passed practicals and tests, and I've done it for so long. So I get there now that I'm a senior, I get there at 9, because if you're not a senior, you have to go in at 8, and you have an hour of lecture, or we call it theory. But once you're a senior, you're supposed to know everything that they're going to teach you, so you don't have to go. And we get set up. We have about 15 minutes, and then we get our client cards, and it has a little receipt about your client for the day, and it says their name, their last appointment, or if they're a new client, and what they want done and what time they're coming in. I get a lot of color because I'm there every single day. Not all students show up every day, so I typically am given, as we would call it, a project. So I get big transformations. So.
And so what do you have to do when you're finished with your programs so that you can go to work?
I have to do a senior project in each, so hair, skin, and nails. And then we pass an overall test. So we have Oregon law, which is a really big one. And then our final hair, final skin, final nails. And then we graduate from school, and then they give us permission, or our graduation slip, to be able to go to the state and get our actual cosmetology license. Do you want me to go first?
Go for it.
Okay. I would say beauty school is pretty easy to get into. However, staying in my beauty school, you have to be, in my opinion, you have to be more motivated than going to just a normal state school because we are private. We are required to have an 82% attendance rate. We have to pass our tests with 85% or better. So the teachers definitely hold you accountable. And from my experience from girls transferring to our schools, it's definitely a step up from just your usual state school. So it's not exactly hard to get in. It's just we do lose some people along the way because you do have to be motivated to stay in my school, and they are not scared about suspending you.
So Jace, how did you come to decide that this was your career pathway?
Well, I actually went to college for a couple years. I went to Lynn Benton Community College in Oregon State. After 2 years of doing that, I didn't really know what I wanted to do beyond that. So I knew I wanted to work, and I met some people in the field and just went ahead and applied.
How did it work for you to get accepted into your program?
So there's a process, an application, and an interview that you go through. Based on how well you did with your application interview, you get placed on a list. I happen to be 21st on the list, so I was the 21st person last year to get hired. Yeah, so they do, your application is, your maximum points you could get are 110, and then your interview, your maximum points is 110. So if you scored 110 in your application and 110 in your interview, then most likely you would be the first person on the list to be hired. And that just depends on how well, maybe if you went to college, you get points. If you did good in high school, but where you get most of your points is your prior work experience. Any sort of construction helps you out a lot.
Awesome. Okay, and so then can you give us a brief overview of how your program works and possibly what a day-to-day looks like for you, what your classes look like?
Yeah, so once it's your turn on the list to get hired, it's any hiring agency can hire you unless maybe you know someone in the field. So I actually was hired on with a company called Tomco Electric. I happen to know somebody that worked there, but it's just whoever needs apprentices, they can hire you. So you kind of just get thrown out to work with whatever company needs an apprentice, and you go to work for them. Now, with that being said, once you get into the apprenticeship, you're in for good. As long as you go to school and complete your hours, you can work for any company you want if they'll hire you. The day-to-day, going to school and working. So get up, usually go to work at 7, work an 8-hour day. And then from September to April, you go to school, and that's 2 days a week, 3 hours at a time. So 3-hour classes, 5:30 to 8:30. And, it's kind of like, going to school anywhere else. You have homework and tests and stuff like that.
Cool. And then for you to complete your program, do you have to take a test at the end? How many years does it take you to get through your program?
Mm-hmm. So it's about a 4-year program. There's requirement of hours on the job and hours in the classroom that you have to have. So I believe it's by the time your 4 years is up, you have to have 8,000 work hours, which you log each month, and somewhere around 580 school hours. You complete all your hours and school hours, then you have the opportunity to take your journeyman's test, and then you have the opportunity to become a journeyman electrician.
And then can you tell us a little bit about your work hours? Do you get paid for those, or how does that work?
Starting off as an apprentice, you start out at, I think, $16.50. Then every 1,000 hours of work you have, and every 144 hours, or every, I think it's 72 hours of school, then you get a $2 pay raise. Getting into the electrical program can be challenging. I think the year, or last year when I applied in May, I think there was somewhere around 150 applicants. And it took me, I think, almost 6 months to get hired till it was my turn on the list. And I, I had heard, that I might not even get hired this, that year. But luckily I got hired. I applied in, I think it was May, and didn't get hired till almost October. So yeah, and it actually worked out perfect, because the week I was hired, we started school in the end of September. So I actually got to start work and school at the same time. But, a lot of people told me that, don't get discouraged if I didn't get hired this year, because you can always reapply next year. And, if you keep applying, then, and you keep working up on getting good experience and stuff, then eventually you get hired.
Up next, we have actually a video. So hopefully everyone has their volume turned on and up so you can enjoy this feature film that we have for you.
So my name is Marshall Roach. I'm the Dean of the Brooks Center, which is what you saw in that video and what's actually behind me. And I'm with Chemeketa Community College. And so our Brooks Center is located just north of our Salem Center. It's just right outside of Kaiser. And we run our emergency services programs there and our diesel program. So our newest program that we're just starting, in fact, our first ever cohort will be starting this coming fall, is our diesel technician program. And it's going to focus on not just diesel engines and trucks, but also agriculture, forestry equipment, basically anything that has a diesel engine in it. And so we're currently taking applications for that program, and it's basically fill out the application, and then there's a selection process, and hopefully start the first cohort fall term. We also run several other programs at Brooks. One of them is our corrections and criminal justice and law enforcement program. We call that CJ for just criminal justice, but we have multiple degrees there. We have a law enforcement, a juvenile justice, a corrections degree, and then we also have just a general criminal justice degree. That's kind of one that kids like to transfer on to a 4-year with. The corrections and the law enforcement programs are cohort-based programs, and you can see in the picture up above there, that's our honor guard. It's they're in full uniform, and they're there. It's modeled after the police academy, and so it's run just like that you would expect at the academy. I'd say roughly 60% is hands-on and 40% is theory-based. The other program that we run is fire protection. we have 2 degrees. We have our fire prevention program and our fire suppression program. The fire prevention program is a program that you can do online. Typically, it's done by people who are already in the industry, folks that want to become, say, a fire marshal. And then the suppression program is our cohort-based program, run similar to our law enforcement program, hands-on. We have 2 operational fire stations that students work and live out of and train with firefighters. And when they're done, they become IFSAC accredited firefighters, so they can actually go out of state and be firefighters. We also have a EMT and paramedic program. Now that one's unique in that our paramedic program, many of our students actually do both fire and paramedic, because to get hired in the industry, it's very, very desirable to have both of those things. But the EMT program is the, I guess, entry program for paramedic. It can be taken in 1 to 2 terms, and then from there you go directly into the paramedic program and get your paramedic license. And I'd say of the 4 programs that we have, I'd say paramedic is probably the most competitive, and it's the most challenging with the actual curriculum. But we have a very, very higher rate out of that program, and a lot of students that, like I said, do both the fire and the paramedic. Those folks end up working for usually larger agencies. So that's us in a nutshell. Then the final thing that we have is that we own and operate the Brooks Regional Training Center, which is the building that you saw, and that we do testing there for pre-employment. So if people get our degrees and they want to get hired in the industry, they can take testing to then get hired in that industry. And that's us in a nutshell.
Agriculture sciences, we're in a transition period right now at the college. We have, and behind me is some artists' renditions of a new center that is going up, an agricultural complex. So we've had a horticulture degree and some farm business management and those types of programs for a number of years. What we've recently added is an agriculture program, that a horticulture degree that transfers directly to Oregon State University. So that's very exciting. And we're also starting up a crop health certificate, which is very science-based. So if you're into science, if you're into technology, if you're into innovative thinking, there's going to be a lot in the agricultural sciences area. You'll see on the slide that Jose's put up, there's also some grape growing that goes on, vineyard management, and I'll let Paul talk about that when he comes on a little bit later. But really in ag sciences right now, we're focused on things like precision agriculture. We also are starting as part of the complex, the agriculture complex, a woody ornamentals lab. So that'll be research into basically trees and perennial shrubs, if you're familiar with that. And then we also have drone technology. So one of our faculty in electronics and robotics is actually FAA approved, and he is essentially a pilot for the campus for UAVs or drone technology. Also through the electronics program, which is part of, as I've mentioned, agriculture sciences, we do have industrial electronics and electronics engineering technology, and those types of jobs that are connected with that. Those programs are things that you would find at like an Intel or HP. So a lot of programming, working with computers, working with systems and automation, and anything of that nature that has kind of that troubleshooting, again, innovation, creative thinking type of skill base. So if you like anything along those lines when it comes to technology, if you're into robotics in particular, or if you're excited and interested in being outdoors and being involved in the science of growing things, everything from food crops to nursery plants to landscape, any of those types of areas that are connected with agriculture, then Not only do we already have some degrees in that, by next year at this time, we will be fully in production with our agricultural complex. And again, I don't know if you can see it very well, but there's right above me is the groundbreaking and where we've actually started the construction. That picture's from about probably close to a month ago now. And then you can see some renditions of what the complex will look like.
Noel Cobb, and I'm the Dean for the Applied Technologies programs at Chemeketa Community College. We look at these programs as a lot of the trades types of programs. We have automotive, welding, drafting, machining. We also have what we call occupational skills training, which is kind of like an internship that folks can sign up for. With our automotive program, we offer one degree, a 2-year Associate of Applied Science degree. The first year of that program, a person can get a certificate, a basic automotive technician certificate. The students who graduate from the program with the certificate can go into a line job like lube technician and things like that. And then the students who continue on to the 2-year degree, they can go, a lot of them work for bigger dealerships and things like that. And then we also have an agreement with a university over in Utah where our students can enter directly into a 4-year program from there at a junior level. Okay, our machining program is also sometimes referred to as manufacturing. And so from the images there, you can see that we have a lot of CNC equipment. The equipment that we try to use is the higher end stuff that's used in places like Boeing. And our students generally are getting hired right out of the 6th term, so right close to the end of their work in the program. We also do a lot of manual machining. The unique thing about our program is we do 2 full years of both manual machining and computer numerical control, so the CNC machining. So our students have an awful lot of breadth and depth in both manual and CNC machining. We have an Associate of Applied Science degree and then a certificate, a CAM Fundamentals certificate. Our drafting program, we teach several different design technologies. We teach architectural drafting, we teach mechanical drafting, we do some information system and survey systems. And we have an Associate of Applied Science degree as well as 2 different certificates. So we have an entry level, a CAD certificate and an architectural drafting certificate. And then our welding program is also a 2-year degree or a welding certificate with the 1st-year classes. We've had this program at the campus at the college since it first started. So we've been there for a long time. A couple of years ago, well, about 5 years ago now, we upgraded the facility. So we have a fairly new shop, good lighting, really nice equipment and booths to work in. And our students likewise get hired pretty much right away. In general, all of our programs, our students get hired towards the end of their 2nd year if they're going for the 2-year degree. And every one of our programs really focuses on students doing 1 or 2 hours of lecture each week maybe, and then anywhere from 3 to 9 hours of lab time. And so our students are doing a lot of hands-on skills-based training. 3 of our programs are what we call limited enrollment. So similar to what Marshall was talking about, students have to apply to get into their program. And some of them are a little more competitive than others. But generally we fill those up each year and we keep them fairly full. So in order to get started, much like Marshall talked about, you have to be a student at Chemeketa Community College. So you can apply for free, and then you do the orientation, you become a student, and then if you're looking at automotive, machining, or welding, you would do an application for those specific programs. And then our staff will look at the applications and grade people, and then see who gets into the programs. Much like Jace was talking about, Chemeketa Community College has an apprenticeships program, and we have 4 trades within the program: heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigerant technicians. We have plumbers, and we have sheet metal, and then we also have an electrician apprenticeship for inside wire technicians. And that it's through the college, but the classes are all held at the IETC. So it's a training center for electricians on Portland Road in Salem. Our 4 programs are non-union, so the entry is very similar to what Jace talked about, but instead of doing an interview, what we do is, as a program, we work with students and our community partners to place people into a shop for employment so that they can get their work hours while they're doing their related training. But very much like Jace talked about, it's very competitive for some of them, especially the inside wire electrician, and people might be on the list for a little while, but we do help people try to find a place to work and then work with them to get started in the program.
I oversee the career technical education at the Yamhill Valley campus and also at the Areola campus in West Salem, which is our wine studies programs. First program here I'm going to talk about, I believe, is our medical assisting program. So, you know, when you're sick and you're sitting in the doctor's office and someone calls your name, they take your weight and height, take your weight, measure your height, then ask you all those family medical history questions before you see the doctor. Well, those are the people we train. Those are the medical assistants. Our program is a limited enrollment, so you have to apply to the program. This is a 9-month program. We start the program twice a year. We start one in September and then another one in April. And we typically accept 30 students twice a year. So we usually put about, in a year's time, we'll graduate close to 60 students. We do have attrition, so. But that is a very short-term program. It is a certificate of completion. And students typically, when they're done with that, will usually get hired at their site where they did their clinicals. Our next program here is our dialysis program. So if you may know someone whose kidneys have failed, it's very serious. They're unable to remove toxins from their blood and their body, and these toxins build up. And eventually, if you don't do anything about it, you'll eventually pass. But if you are able to get a new kidney, that's the best option. But if the second best option is to go in and have dialysis, which is what we train students to do, is basically clean blood. They take the blood out of your body and push it through dialyzers, which extract those toxins from your blood, and then they put that blood back in your body. This process can take someone, depending on how, lots of factors there, but usually someone goes in between 3 and 5 hours at a time, usually about 3 times a week. That program also, like medical assisting, is a limited enrollment, and it is a 9-month program as well. The next program here is the basic nursing assistant, I believe. This program, we offer at Chemeketa, both in Salem and at the Yamhill Valley campus. This is a 8-week program. Students, as you can see there, it's 155 hours of training. 80 of those hours you do in a classroom / lab setting, and then the other 75 hours you're typically at a long-term care facility under the supervision of a registered nurse or a CNA. Upon completion of this program, students do sit for a state certification, and once they pass that, they are officially certified nursing assistants. The next two programs I'm going to talk about are online. One is speech-language pathology, and basically speech-language pathology assistants, they really help children and adults with communication disorders and help them, most typically we think of them teaching them how to speak and say certain sounds, but it's also more than that, also teaching them how to listen and interact with the world around them. This is a 2-year program, and also limited enrollment. We accept about 50 students a year for this program, and they're with us for 2 years. Next slide is about hospitality and tourism. This is one of Oregon's largest industries, and with recent events has taken the biggest hit, or one of the biggest hits here in the state, with everything getting shut down for a while. This program, we have lots of options here. We have 5 different certificates you can earn that are 1 year long. And all those certificates, so the certificates are hospitality and tourism, food and beverage management, lodging management, event management, and tourism and travel. Those 5 certificates, they all build up to the 2-year Associate of Applied Science degree. This is 100% online, and which seems kind of counterintuitive to a hospitality where most of your work is in a face-to-face environment. However, when we designed this program many years ago, we designed it with the people in the industry in mind, because many of them do work really odd hours, and being able to take classes online worked really good for them. And then there's 2 other things I just want to mention real quick before I wrap up. I don't have slides for them, but one is the wine studies program. This is a new addition to my world. We have 2 programs there. One is vineyard management. We live in wine country, and lots and lots and lots of vineyards around this area. And once you grow the grapes, you got to harvest them, and then you make the wine. And our other program is the winemaking program. 2 great programs, and I'm learning lots about that now. And then last but not least is I oversee our truck driving program. This is a 4-week training program. You have to be at least 18 years old. And we train you to, and have your driver's license for 1 year, but we'll train you to learn how to drive big rigs and earn your Class A CDL.